I'm Dr. Park Dietz, and I'm about to meet a man that I've never met before. He's already serving time for one homicide, but yesterday he reached a plea agreement in which he admitted to killing 6 other women. Part of his plea agreement was that he had to tell the truth, and the district attorney's office asked me to conduct this interview.
A killer confessing to his crimes, and a forensic psychiatrist delving deep inside the mind of a convicted murderer.
They've granted us access to videotape it. This was an effort to try to find out as much as we could about this man, his life, his crimes. He's the one that set the limits on how far he'd go.
A man known as the i-5 Strangler agrees to talk about his crimes and to lead police on a search of his killing fields to avoid the death penalty.
Does it make you uncomfortable to have the cameras here?
No.
At what point in the process of taking a girl out do you know she's going to die?
I haven't figured that one out yet. I don't know if it's halfway down the road or while I'm doing it. I don't know why I picked these 7 out of all that I picked up and let loose.
Do you think you understood why you did your crimes?
No.
Are you curious?
Oh, yeah. I don't know why I did them.
Would you like to know?
Throw it out there.
At the San Joaquin County Courthouse in Northern California, a killer arrives for questioning. However, this is not an ordinary interrogation. This murderer is about to take part in an extraordinary interview. The man's name is Roger Kibbe, better known as the i-5 Strangler. From 1977 until his capture in 1988, Kibbe terrorized the northern part of California with his killing spree. Police say he was given the nickname the i-5 Strangler because of where he disposed of the bodies of his first 3 victims. Though he doesn't look intimidating now, investigators say at one time this man was capable of overpowering women, raping them, and killing them at will.
Roger, this is Dr. Dietz right here, the man I told you about to talk to you.
Hi, Mr. Kibbe.
Hi.
Can you shake hands from where you are? Would it be all right to remove his handcuffs?
Sure.
Is that okay by you?
Fine.
Kibbe admits to killing 7 women. The police say it's more. Kibbe is willing to talk to a forensic psychiatrist if he can avoid the death penalty. Despite a wealth of evidence against him, authorities are willing to offer Kibbe a plea deal. At 70 years of age, it is unlikely Kibbe will be executed before he dies of natural causes. And the plea deal ensures he will cooperate with authorities as they attempt to connect him to unsolved homicides.
Mr. Kibbe, before we start, I want to mention a couple of things to you so that it's all out on the table for you. One is that I think you know that I'm a forensic psychiatrist.
In 2009, Roger Kibbe pled guilty to 6 additional murders where he was given a sentence of life without possibility of parole. Part of the deal agreement with Kibbe is that he would speak with us and also agree to speak with Park Dietz about the crimes that he had committed.
I've never been involved in a case where we filmed a thing such as this, and I know you haven't either, so we're exploring new territory here. But part of what I want to make sure you understand, I would tell anyone I'm interviewing, there's no confidentiality, which is not the way it would be if you were seeing a doctor who was trying to help you. So I'm not here to help you. I'm not here to hurt you either. I'm here to ask questions, understand, and try to shed some light on things. But that could end up helping you or hurting you.
For more than 3 decades, Park Dietz has interviewed some of the nation's most notorious killers, such as Joel Rifkin and Jeffrey Dahmer. His job is to get inside their heads, understand why they did what they did, so acts like theirs can be prevented in the future.
My goals in the interview were both to assist law enforcement in answering some questions, and also to be able to understand his motivations and whether there were any psychiatric disturbances that played a part.
Police and Dr. Dietz are interested in what's believed to be Kibbe's first murder. It happened in 1977. Kibbe admits to killing 21-year-old Lou Ellen Burley, but despite the repeated efforts of investigators, her remains have never been found. Authorities hope that after this interview, Kibbe will be convinced to lead them to her final resting place.
There was a mystery that hadn't been solved, which was where were Ms. Burley's remains? He had cooperated with investigators in trying to locate the bodies and remains of other victims, but in her case, despite his efforts to let them know where she was, she had never been found.
Lou Ellen Burley was a secretarial student when Roger Kibbe tricked her into meeting him for a job interview.
If I understand correctly, Ms. Burley was your first homicide in 1977.
77, first one.
Start at the beginning of what was going on in your life that week and that day and how this came about.
Curiosity got me. I called a college in Walnut Creek and told the director that I was moving a company, makeup and all that crap. We got a warehouse over here, and I would like to find somebody who can be office manager. And she wanted to know how many I wanted to look at. I said one, right now. I parked behind a theater at that time. She showed up and got out of her car and got in my van, and we talked for a while. I told her I forgot my paperwork and all this other stuff. Can I see you tomorrow? Well, that's when I should have stopped, right there. I kept going.
For Park Dietz, this is a key moment to understand. Why did Kibbe keep going? What was his thinking that allowed him to follow through? To get answers, Dr. Dietz must ask the right questions in the right order.
Now, when you met her the first time, this girl, what were you thinking you might do?
I might have been thinking, can I get away with this?
And then get away with what?
Get away with her.
Well, what were you going to do? Were you going to rape her?
Have sex with her, yeah. Kidnap her, rape her, have sex, kill her.
So from the beginning, you were thinking about killing her?
No, that never played into my mind. Not until the second day.
Well, on the first day, the idea was what? Get a girlfriend, date her, rape her?
I don't know.
Kidnap her?
Maybe kidnap her, rape her. I never thought about killing. I don't believe that ever entered my mind until I had her down on the floor. She showed up on a Sunday, I believe, and got into the van, and we started talking, and I looked around, and I told her, oh, there's my trucks now. She turned and looked. I reached up and grabbed a handful of hair on her head and pulled her down on the floor. We wrestled for a while until she pooped out, tied her up, and I took off. Where I was going, I had no idea.
Before his killing spree, Roger Kibbe was an avid skydiver with more than 4,000 jumps. Once he began killing, he used parachute cords to choke several of his victims.
One of the interesting things about Kibbe's background is his experience as a skydiver. What he no doubt discovered was that he could get a rush from jumping out of a plane. The fundamental biological difference between people who are psychopaths and those who aren't is that psychopaths don't experience the normal level of anxiety as something scary is about to happen. But once the scary things happen, they have a sudden rush of sensation, which is quite unfamiliar to them. And so it can become highly addictive to keep doing the thing that suddenly evokes an emotion that's generally absent.
So the position you had her in to tie her was face down, at which point you tied her wrists together behind her back using the parachute cord, and then you rotated her body so that her face is toward the rear of the van?
No, let me back up. what I stupidly did, I got on the freeway to go back over the Martinez Bridge, and it hit me. It's a toll. So to get her to shut up, as I pulled out a dollar bill, I took the knife out and I put it to the back of her neck. I said, "Don't scream. I'm coming down on this."
Coming up, Park Dietz discovers just how detached Roger Kibbe is from the act of murder.
You happen to remember what the first thing was you did when you got home?
Probably went to bed.
As part of a plea deal, convicted killer Roger Kibbe, also known as the i-5 Strangler, has agreed to tell forensic psychiatrist Dr. Park Dietz the truth about his crimes. He continues to tell how he killed his first victim, 21-year-old Llewellyn Burley.
She was complaining that the ropes were too tight. I pulled over, loosened them up, and kept on driving. Where I was going, I had no clue. I could have went straight, right, left, whatever, to find a place. I went right back up to Berryessa, where I knew where to go. I knew how to get there. And that's where it happened.
The land surrounding Lake Berryessa is rugged, unforgiving terrain.
What do? You put the van in park and...
I parked it on a flat area.
You pulled her panties off, or did you cut them off?
No, I didn't cut the panties off. I cut the bra off. She got dressed, turned around, and went over a little hill, and I followed this dirt road all the way down to the bottom of the canyon.
You're driving, you say?
No, walking.
Walking?
Yeah. Little dirt road has a horseshoe shape in it, and right there is like a little canyon that goes up the hill. It's full of boulders, big boulders, and that's where she is today.
And then what happens when you're standing out there?
I strangled her.
How'd you feel about killing her?
I don't know. The first time I ever did it.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
I don't know. I felt bad later. I did it, thinking about it. But while it was happening, blank mind. Don't think of anything. It's like a fog.
Was there any pleasure in the killing itself?
No. None whatsoever.
Curiosity?
Maybe. It was an act that should never have happened. But I was too far into it. What do you do?
I think the truth must be that at the time he had abducted her, had already raped her, there was no turning back. At that point, his decision is, which is more important, my continuing freedom or whether she dies?
Do you regard that as a rape?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, naturally.
And would that be the first rape you ever committed?
Right.
How'd you feel about the rape part of it?
How does anybody feel? Good or bad? I don't know. No?
Well, some people like it, and they keep doing it because it feels good.
Yeah.
Did you like it?
I don't think so. Because I knew what I was doing was wrong. And if it's wrong, you can't like it.
A lot of people like doing things they know are wrong.
Yeah. I'm one of them.
The general theme of Roger Kibbe and other sexually sadistic, psychopathic serial killers, because that's the category he's in, is first an unusual sexual desire. To a man who is sexually sadistic, the things that are sexiest, that are the turn on, are control over the partner, the ability to have the partner do as he wishes, the ability to inflict pain or humiliation or suffering, and ultimately, the ability to control whether she lives or dies.
If you had to rate that as a sexual experience from 1 to 10, where 10's the best, how's it go?
Probably an 8.
An 8?
Yeah, because it's a forced act.
I understand she's forced to do it. I want to understand how that influences the rating.
It takes two people to cooperate and tangle. That's a 10. Anything below that, below 8, almost has to be on her part. I got a headache, I don't want to do it.
So would having sex with this kidnapping victim be the equivalent of pushing your wife into having sex with you even though she has a headache and says she doesn't want to?
Right.
That's about the quality of the sex for you?
Not very good for her, probably good for me.
When they asked you why you killed Llewellyn Burley, your first murder victim, you said it was just to see if it could be done.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's that mean?
You make a plan, see if you can carry it out, see if it can be done. That's all. It's like stacking bricks.
You know, there are a lot of different plans that a man could decide to make to see if he can do it.
Yeah.
Could be, can I get a job and hold it for 6 months? Can I make my wife happy for a week? Can I make myself save money?
Yeah.
Can I abduct and murder a woman? Huh? Where does that fit in with the plans a man might make?
I don't know why I did what I did. To see if it could be done. I've said that before.
Do you see it as a challenge? So you're given the answer like, why do you climb Mount Everest?
Because it's there.
Coming up, investigators take Roger Kibbe to where he says he killed Llewellyn Burley in hopes they can find her remains more than 30 years after her death.
But what I'm mostly concerned about is that cutaway hill. That's my key.
Inside the San Joaquin County, California courthouse, an extraordinary interview is taking place. Part of convicted murderer Roger Kibbe's plea deal calls for him to sit down with renowned forensic psychiatrist Dr. Park Dietz for a tell-all confession in hopes that Kibbe will admit to more than just the murders cops know about.
Like you said, I think he's keeping because we might find other victims.
One of the interested parties is Detective Vito Bertuccini, who has been working the Roger Kibbe case for over 10 years.
When we had done our background on Roger, we found that he had taken a polygraph in regards to one of the crimes he had done down in San Diego. And the polygrapher described Kibbe at that time as being potentially one of the world's most dangerous men ever encountered. And he said the reason that was is because Roger Kibbe had such a hatred for women.
Roger Reece Kibbe was born in 1941 and grew up in the National City Navy projects outside San Diego. Kibbe tells investigators that his father, now deceased, was a naval officer who was rarely home, and that as a young boy he was neglected by his mother, a woman he refers to as his dad's wife.
She wasn't a good mother. I don't call her that. Dad served 21 years in the Navy, left me and my 2 brothers home with his wife. I don't call her the M word. I don't have one. Dad would come home from Navy base late at night, and 2 or 3 years old, find me in the garden in a pair of diapers. Why I'm out there, I don't know.
He recognized that she was never good to him, wasn't warm, didn't take care of him, beat him, abused him, neglected him. And that, of course, is a source of his hostility toward women.
Going through elementary school, couldn't read or write. Going through junior high, couldn't read or write. In the middle of the senior year, I was asked to leave school because I couldn't read and write. Dad went to the principal, and he was told that we just keep pushing him along, and eventually they get it. Well, eventually he never got around to me.
What else do you remember about the way your mom treated you?
Always yelling. What did I do? There's been times when I've even tried to get closer to her because maybe I needed her and I wasn't getting her. No more lunches in school, no money to eat at the cafeteria. I told him, if you ever find my yearbooks, I'm wearing T-shirts, not regular dress shirts. It was just bad all the way through.
Well, I do want to try to understand about why your mom would neglect you so, because you seem to think that's important and sounds important to me too.
I call it pretending to be a housewife.
Did she give you any serious beatings?
I think I was beaten several times. I can remember one Christmas, I got up and took a canister of flour and sugar and dumped it on the living room rug and got my little car from underneath the tree and Megan rode through it. I got beat pretty good for that. I got beat for not being home on time.
Did you have any friends as a child?
I basically was a loner. I stayed to myself. In grade school, I started stuttering real bad. I'd open my mouth and nothing would come out. And for about 2 years, I never said more than one word because it was that bad. I was a basic loner all through life.
Kibbe says it was during the early 1970s that he married his second wife, Harriet. His failed first marriage from years ago was long over. Now in his early 30s, Kibbe works at a gas station and then manages a furniture store that eventually fails. Kibbe tells investigators it doesn't take long for he and Harriet to begin arguing, which drives Kibbe deeper into his killing rage. A monster in the outside world, he manages to keep his murderous actions a secret from his wife during their entire marriage.
I had so many knives in my back because of her. She didn't cook. No breakfast, no lunch. 1 or 2 dinners I can remember. My God, I married my mother all over again. I would bring my checks home and stupidly give to her. I needed money for gas. I needed money to eat on. It wasn't there. I got pissed off at her several times, almost beat her.
What would a perfect wife be like if you could design one to your specs?
I don't think there is a perfect wife.
Besides trying to understand Kibbe's past, Dietz is also here to try and gather important information about how he killed.
The other shoes found out on the way bottom. So is he saying he threw her in? He didn't. He drug her down in here.
Police say they have dozens of open cases that closely resemble the Kibbe murders. If Dietz can get Kibbe to admit certain things about murders he claims to have committed, he may well be responsible for other unsolved cases.
Can we talk about Stephanie Brown now?
Yeah.
Kibbe's second victim, Stephanie Brown, was a 19-year-old student. This time, Kibbe says his ruse was pretending to have car trouble when Brown stopped to help him on the side of the highway. Police are especially interested in why Stephanie Brown, like many of Kibbe's other victims, had clothes cut from her body, something Kibbe refuses to admit doing.
You said that the claim in the records that her skirt was cut.
I was told her skirt was cut, and they told me I cut it. And I told them, you're full of beans. I never cut it. Didn't have to. I told her to take all her clothes off. She took all her clothes off, all in one piece. She was sitting there. I untied her. I told her, take your shoes off, put them in the next seat. Take your skirt off. Everything she took off, I told her to take off. They were never cut. Never.
Though Kibbe is quick to deny cutting the clothes of his victims, the evidence at the crime scenes tells a very different story. One that Park Dietz says fits with Kibbe's psychological profile.
To cut the clothing can provide gratification to the offender without injuring the victim. So in a sense then, cutting clothing is a kinder, gentler means of exercising the sadistic impulse.
I had told her to put your hair in a ponytail. I cut the ponytail off. Is that a sign that I'm pissed off at my dad's wife? Am I getting even with somebody? I don't know. I tossed her clothes, some of them, in the canal. They found the scissors in the canal. They found the skirt, they said, was cut in the canal. More cop lies. I never cut that skirt. Somebody else had to do it.
When Roger was 15, 16 years of age, he was going to the clotheslines and stealing women's clothing, and he was bringing them back home and cutting them at that time. He will sit there and tell us about the rape that he committed on the women, and he will sit there and tell us about the strangulation without any problem. When it came time for the clothes cutting, he would back off. In his mind, strangling and raping, that's okay. People do that. But cutting clothes is very strange.
She's the only girl that I remember the name, Stephanie Brown. I don't remember the others. Why do I remember her? I don't know. She was a bank teller. Her and her girlfriend just bought a house.
You learned all that from her?
Yeah, she told me a little bit. And I did my deed. I strangled her and went home. It keeps getting easier and easier and easier to do it.
What gets easier?
Killing.
Coming up, Park Dietz delves deeper into the mind of a killer.
At what point in the process of taking a girl out do you know she's going to die?
Roger Kibbe, otherwise known as the i-5 Strangler, continues to tell Dr. Park Dietz everything about the murders he's committed.
When did you cut it?
I usually took pieces that I had.
It's a grueling and at times horrific process.
How about this fella?
No.
That's not you?
Oh, he's got a nick in his ear, like I do, in the right ear. I don't recognize it.
And part of a plea agreement in which Kibbe agrees to tell the truth about his crimes to avoid the death penalty. Prosecutors want Kibbe to confess so that victims' families learn the truth, while giving Kibbe a chance to open up about unsolved cases.
You understand that this is a time-limited opportunity to confess to any of them
Right.
without any legal risk.
Right. And I told the officer, I'm not going to confess to something I didn't do. I can't do that.
And nobody wants you to do that.
I can't do that.
But we would like you to confess to what you really did do.
Yeah, and I've already done that.
And you haven't got any others.
No others. I can stand on 7, and that's it. Whether you want to believe me or not.
At what point in the process of taking a girl out do you know she's going to die?
I haven't figured that one out yet, because I don't know why. I don't know if it's right now, halfway down the road, or while I'm doing it. I don't know why I picked these 7 out of all that I picked up and let loose.
Were there any occasions on which the strangulation itself was a turn-on for you?
There's been times when I sat and thought about it, and I come up with the idea that while I was doing it, my mind was a blank. If someone took my mind, I would look off in another direction, look up at the stars if they're ready. That one in Berryessa up on the hill, when I was doing her, I looked up and saw the Big Dipper. I just stared at the Big Dipper while I had my hands around her throat. I don't know how long it takes. To me, it felt like it just took a few minutes. I've had people tell me that it takes much longer than that.
In Roger's mind, strangulation was a kinder and gentler way to kill somebody. I think it was a power trip, knowing that he had in his hands the control of their life. He did tell stories where he had strangled the women with his hands. He could feel the vocal cords inside their throat, and he could just squeeze and just feel the life go out of them.
How many nights did you go look for a victim and find nobody?
2, 3 nights, maybe.
So not a lot.
Not a lot, no.
Usually, if you wanted one, you found one.
I'm going to say 50-50. A lot of nights, we didn't find anything. They're out there, but not what I wanted. Other nights, they stick out like a sore thumb. They're willing to get into a car. That's their mistake.
Anything she could have done to avoid being pulled into the car in the first place?
Kept on driving. Kept on driving until you got off the freeway where there were stores around. Way at the end, Highway 12, where there's lights, where there's people. Stop at a gas station. Get directions, get back on the freeway, go home.
And if someone did make the mistake of pulling over, maybe even to be a good Samaritan,
to a motorist who's broken down. How can she avoid being dragged into a car by the likes of you?
Not good. Not good at all.
What people should realize is that Kibbe is just the tip of the iceberg. There are more Kibbes out there. When we did our investigation, we were flooded with hundreds of possible leads in this case. Some of these people are actually predators that are out there driving the roads among us, who live right among us. Kibbe made a comment that there was never a girl that was going to get away with him once he decided to take her. So, if anything else, be wary. Hopefully you're never in that situation, but I instructed my wife and my daughter, fight like hell. Because once he has you in that car, they were done.
Coming up, the mystery of where Llewellyn Burley was killed is finally solved.
It was a miracle. I think I'd go for the needle in the haystack.
The day after his court-decreed interview with Park Dietz, Roger Kibbe is allowed out of his cell once again. Investigators are hoping he will be able to find the spot where he killed Llewellyn Burley in the rural mountains surrounding Lake Berryessa.
We drove to this pullout along Highway 128, and on the trunk of my car, I showed him the different aerial photos, what they looked like in 1977, what they looked like in '89, and then you could look at it and see how the area had changed. So it went like...
It went...
The highway went this way?
It went this way, and then...
But you could have hit it with a rock.
Oh, yeah.
And you looked down on the highway.
Yeah.
Okay. You described that you had sex in the van.
Right.
And then you walked up over the top of a hill.
Right.
And then down.
Right.
It's very, very overgrown now.
Yeah.
Now, we had been there several times already with Roger Kibbe. We even put him in a helicopter because he was a person that was parachuting so much. We thought that maybe if we put him in a helicopter and he was able to see from above, he might be able to identify the location.
That's what I'm looking for.
Okay.
I find that, I can turn around and go back.
We had him in 2009, so we did the same thing again. We drove up and down some roads. We got out, we walked some roads.
Though Kibbe has described this spot in great detail, once there, he becomes confused. It has been more than 3 decades since the killing, and nothing seems the same.
There are no hills. It's all flat on top. There's dirt roads on top.
But what I'm saying is, see up there, does it look like it could be flat up there?
He said he wasn't up that high.
Things could change, but he's looking for specific items, so it was going to be extremely difficult for him to find that exact location. 32 years, this is our 4th time up here. We'll never find that spot. He's just not going to remember, we're not going to find it.
And if you stand here, you can look down into the valley.
Stand where? Stand where?
Well, if I was standing here.
There was no other area that matched. Either he was lying about where the homicide had occurred, or he didn't recognize the spot. But I knew her remains were in that area. They had to be.
What do you think the odds are?
None. We're not going to find nothing here. We're done. This is our last, definitely our last trip to this place. We're not coming back.
Do you think he's jerking you around?
That's what we're wondering.
I don't. I think he'd give this up if he could.
I think he's probably trying, but in the back of my mind, it's always been, is he jerking us around on this?
Despite their efforts, investigators would not find the location on this day. It would take nearly 2 more years for authorities to solve the mystery. The first break came in 2010 when Napa County investigator Mike Fry found an ally, Napa County Deputy Mike Bartlett, who was familiar with the case.
Mike Bartlett was stationed at Lake Berryessa, and he called me and said, hey, I'm up here, it's off season, there's not a lot going on, would you mind if I tried to find her? And I just thought that's exactly what we needed.
Finally, on a misty March morning in 2011, using information gleaned from the interview with Park Dietz and others, they find the location.
In 1977, when this occurred, Roger Kibbe parked his van up just over the other side of the ridge here at the top of the hill. He led her up over the top of the ridge and down this dirt road. This dirt road presently is about 10, 12, 14 feet higher than it was then. So he said he walked Ms. Burley along this dirt road. He was walking behind her and he strangled her, and then he said he put her in a ravine from there. After reading the transcripts and looking at the aerial photos, I believe he murdered her right about here.
Once I got to this area and realized that this isn't the way it looked back then, and that the road was approximately 10 feet lower with large boulders in the area, I felt that this was it. After hiking around the area for approximately a month, I started hiking this canyon down below us here, and within about 15 minutes, I saw a white speck the size of a dime or a quarter in about 6 inches of water. I reached down into the water and pulled it up, and as I was pulling it up, I discovered that it was actually a bone that was covered with mud and silt. And as I examined it, I realized that it appeared to be a human hip bone. It was definitely a gratifying experience locating her and giving closure to her family, but without the efforts of everybody involved, it never would have happened.
Coming up, Park Dietz gives his opinion of what drove the i-5 Strangler to kill.
For you to have sex was at least as important as whether she lived or died.
When Dr. Park Dietz completed his interviews with Roger Kibbe, the i-5 Strangler, he tells Kibbe what he believes made him a murderer.
Do you think you understood why you did your crimes?
No.
Are you curious?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I don't know why I did them.
Do you think you have any secrets left?
No. Everything's on the table. Everything.
Yet there's some mysteries, some things that don't fit, some things that don't make sense.
Was it my childhood? Was it her? Was it my upbringing?
Would you like to know?
Yeah. I'd like to know.
I'm happy to tell you if you want to know.
No. Throw it out there.
Well, I don't think you have to be a psychiatrist to recognize that whatever happened between you and your mother has been the source of enormous anger that's generalized beyond your mother. You've had a long-term disregard for the rules, a disrespect for authority. You've been willing to get even when you perceive that somebody wrongs you. You are willing to steal and to lie and to cheat, and those are traits you've carried with you throughout your life, I think. That set of traits in which you've got anger and a willingness to break all the rules, no moral inhibitions against doing things, is a pretty familiar set of traits to mental health professionals. What it was called at the time of your doing these things was sociopath or psychopath, and then it got the name antisocial personality disorder. There's a piece of you missing to be able to feel what other people feel and relate to their suffering, so it doesn't bother you the way it would others. You accept all this so far?
Yeah, yeah.
And if your only crimes were forcible rapes of women, maybe hating women is enough to explain it. But that isn't all you did. And it is a way to get even with women, to attack them violently one after another, to convey to them that you think they're worthless, that they deserve no respect, the same way you think your mom treated you. But to go farther than that, abduct them, hold them captive, keep them under your control for a time, and then ultimately strangle them after 1 or 2 orgasms on your end, that's more than just anger toward women, isn't it?
I believe so, yeah. Yeah, you're right.
As I was telling him what my opinions were, he was nodding in agreement, and I wondered each step of the way, whether he was going to stand up and walk out, whether he was going to get angry, would I see a flare, what was going to happen here.
It's a fact that from your point of view, back when you were doing this, for you to have an orgasm or sex was at least as important as whether she lived or died.
No.
She didn't matter more than that.
I have to agree with you.
What would make sense of the whole story of abduction, rape, captivity, binding, strangulation, homicides, is if you've also got a special sexual interest in that area. And there are a bunch of clues that you do, but you're saying not true to every one of them. The clues that, if believed, would explain this are the cop who says that when you were a kid, you stole some female clothes and you cut it up. You cut female clothing. And the story that you were, as a kid, found tied up with women's clothes and claimed that you'd been kidnapped and put there. The reason those would be so important, if they're true, is that cutting female clothing is a kind of substitute for cutting a woman. It's a non-bloody, non-violent, actually, substitute for doing harm to a person, to cut their clothes or to cut their photograph, because those don't bleed and nobody dies. And as ways to kill go, I can see how you might think of strangulation as not as brutal as some of the other ways you might have killed them, beating them to death or cutting them apart. Now today, when I ask you about all these crimes in detail, you don't admit to the cutting of the clothing, and you deny cutting clothes when you were a kid. These are parts of the story that you distance yourself from. And there's a couple possible reasons of why you're denying those things to me and to law enforcement. One possibility is that you don't remember. These things are too painful for you to remember, and you've pushed them down. I don't really buy that, but some people would. Another possibility is that these things are too shameful and too private, and it's nobody's business, so you're not going to reveal that because you don't want people to think of you as being some kind of pervert. So I think that you've got some private fantasy life that involves tying women up and keeping them captive, and where you'd like to hurt them, but you'll make do with the substitute of cutting the clothing or cutting a ponytail, because you don't want to see yourself as that kind of person who cuts women up. That's what I think.
All right.
You want to ask anything else?
No. You're doing a good job.
In the end, he said, "You're doing a good job." So I think he accepted that what I said nailed it.
Roger Kibbe avoided the death penalty. He is serving a life sentence without the possibility of parole